A real treat for you with this episode of the Patrick Coffin Show. Jason Christoff is an anti-self-sabotage coach. He blogs, he writes, he speaks. Before I introduce him, I want to mention the True North community. If you like connecting dots hiding in plain sight, if you like exposing false media narratives and talk about the money trail of what we call the media industrial complex, check out True North. True North movement is inside my website. It's called patrickcoffin.media. There's tons of links there. Just go to the movement tab and find out what people in 20 countries and more are learning, how to finish each other's sentences and spot propaganda and brainwashing and all the outcomes that our enemies want for us. We don't have outcomes for our own lives. So I think you'll enjoy True North. patrickcoffin.media. Jason Christoff came across my radar a few months ago, and I've been binge watching and listening. He's very active on Instagram. He's spoken in front of EU Parliament, the Romanian Palace. He's spoken at CPAC and the U.S. Senate, and it's an honor to welcome Jason Christoff. Hey, Jason.
Patrick, thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I appreciate it.
I think you do the highest number of interviews before infinity in the run of a year, true?
I know Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, I think, holds the record. I think she did about 2,000 interviews one year.
Oh, my gosh.
And last year, I think I did about 250. So,
Do I detect a nascent Canadian accent?
Absolutely. I'm a Canadian. I was raised mostly in Newfoundland, which some people might know. It's a province on the far east coast of Canada. And I lived in Ontario for the rest of my years until 2021, end of 2021. I had to sell my hard asset business because I was deemed non-essential. So I just packed up everything and I moved to Mexico. And now I spend my time between Mexico and Latvia in the EU.
Well, I grew up in Halifax. So all Canadians across the country grow up hearing things like, tonight, the Montreal Canadiens face off against the Toronto Maple Leafs, 10:30, 11 o'clock in Newfoundland. Newfoundland Standard Time to half an hour off. I've never gotten to the Rock, but every Newfoundlander I know is super friendly. And you actually don't have a Newfoundland accent. I think you may have been off the Rock for long enough.
I've been off the Rock for a while, but if I get put back on there, it can come back pretty fast. Yeah. Absolutely.
Tell me about, I've got a problem now, and I don't know how to launch into this conversation because you and I are rowing in the same direction in so many different ways. Maybe we can start with your inciting incident, or did something happen to you where you suddenly got interested in a grand narrative that's being sold to you, whether it's the CBC or ABC, print media. You and I are maybe the same age. You know, we saw the shift from the hundreds of cable TV stations to the many, many thousands of internet-based media, all telling us certain things, wanting to sell us things we don't necessarily need. Was there one thing, or was it a slow drip process where you realized propaganda is real, mind control is real, brainwashing is not something for conspiracy theory wackos?
It's a gradual process. I started writing for two or three Canadian newspapers about 20 years ago when everything could flow a little bit more freely. So I'd write about mercury teeth fillings, vaccinations, pasteurized milk, Teflon pens, aluminum in the deodorant, and they were the most well-read columns in the newspaper. And then about 10 to 12 years ago, I got fired from that position. And then all of a sudden I started to see all the ads in that newspaper became from multinational corporations. There were no more local writers in the small town newspapers. They were all the same. And then, I'd pick up a newspaper in my hometown. It had the same articles in it as the Montreal newspaper, as the Ottawa newspaper. And you could tell something was going on, but I was inside the mind control as well. Before I was an overcoming self-sabotage coach, sort of a master of psychological manipulation in the positive direction. I was a master self-saboteur myself, executing all the programs that the media put into me, the drinking, basically I do narcotics, steroids, run with the wrong crowd. And I had to use positive forms of mind control to work my way out of all this self-destructive and dark influences that I really had no idea how I took them on, how mind control worked, why I was destroying myself by my own hand. And I was a successful businessman with these programs running in my subconscious mind, which is the most dangerous, because when you have extra financial resources and you have these mind viruses that are implanted into you by media, and they're all about knocking you down and destroying your innate human potential, just destroying the God force inside of you. You can do it a lot easier if you're wealthy. So it was a real disastrous crawl at rock bottom that took me to my darkest hours, to the dark night of the soul, before I pulled out of that and started my long journey to helping myself and then using my experience to help other people.
One of the things you said recently in a walk and talk on Instagram was that the powers that be don't mind if we're smart. They want to make us smart as a kind of asset investment, but they don't want us strong. They want us weakened. They want us overweight. They want us distracted. So whether it's fear porn or actual porn or video games, virtually anything on a shelf, if it's inside the ring of a grocery store, is going to have all the toxins, high fructose content corn syrup, sugar everywhere, vegetable oils. If you're looking close enough, you're tempted to think they're trying to slowly kill us. They don't mind if we're brainiacs, but they don't want us with any self-confidence to kind of push back.
Well, you can't farm lions, right? You can only farm lambs. And even we as human beings understand that you go to the grocery store, there's no shark in the fish area.
Yeah.
And, there's no lions and tigers. It's just easier to farm weaker animals. And the people who are behind, the evil agendas today, they are ancient farmers. And they apply the ancient farming principles, toward us, sort of like a beekeeper in an apiary. We're the bees. We get put, if you noticed, our condominiums look like little white beehives.
Yeah, or rabbit hutches. Yeah.
Yeah, we produce the honey, and the honey is our taxation. And then eventually the beekeeper comes in and steals all the honey and leaves us with hardly any. And so this is what's going on now. And they do weaken us because, mind control is the foundation of this. It's a two-pronged system, mind control and poison. And basically, mind control, doesn't matter what modality you study, it's based on a power differential between the mind controller and the mind control victim. And it doesn't matter, the mind controller doesn't care if you're he or she, the mind control expert, will find your weakness. Are you financially weak? Are you morally weak? You were talking about P. Diddy, I believe, in a recent show. Are you ethically weak? Mm-hmm. And they will make you weak on all fronts. The health weakness is pretty obvious, but the real rewards for a mind controller is when I can steal your self-esteem, steal your self-confidence, and knock you down spiritually, where you don't know right or wrong, you don't know moral or immoral. And then I can really have my way with you. And if I can put some guilt and shame in you, you'll look the same on the outside, but on the inside, you're really weak. So there's lots of shaming tactics and mind control, again, to elicit this power differential. Like if I told you you have to do X, Y, and Z, or you'll take out someone's grandmother, like in 2020,
yes,
that was meant to sort of reduce your internal store of power, but it's invisible. So you don't really know what's going on. You don't know that there is research behind it. You could even do kinesiology-based muscle testing, where you say something negative. I don't know if people know what muscle testing is, but it's a test of your strength of your body. And if you say something negative, I can test your muscles immediately, and your whole body proper is weaker, And if you say something positive to yourself, even inside your own head, your body proper will test, a lot stronger. So negative stuff weakens you, positive stuff strengthens you, poison makes you weak. Watching Netflix, what they call Netflix today, which is just, we all know it's sort of a devilish love-in, but on a psychological basis, it does weaken the person on a spiritual level and even on a physical level.
Even the phrases that arise, I'm sure they're half the time or more deliberate. When you say Netflix, I think Netflix and chill. And what's chill? Chill is a state of passive acceptance of the content of what you're watching, and the idea of zombification. A warrior's not chill. Someone who's fighting back. Lions are not chill. To go back to your analogy.
Absolutely, and even the words have impacts. I guess that's the slogan: Netflix and chill. But actually, there's a other word inside chill that the subconscious will notice. It's ill, and so the more that flashes inside your subconscious mind, your subconscious is proven to rearrange the letters at will, spell things backwards, pick out smaller words inside bigger words. And it can see these patterns really, really easy. And if there are negative connotations associated with any of the phraseology, you're going to have a negative impact. And of course, Netflix is run by the nephew of, or it might be the great nephew of Edward Bernays. And
I did not know that. I know all about Bernays. Is it Reid Hoffman?
No, it's Mark Bernays Randolph.
Oh, okay.
This is the CEO of Netflix. And again, I mean, Bernays is famous for various mind control applications to sell war, to sell bacon. One of his great ones was selling cigarettes to females, again, to poison them and to weaken them, to make them have a greater potential, not a guaranteed 100% effect, but the weaker I can make you, the easier you are to mind control.
Yeah, Eddie Bernays, a really fascinating sub-chapter of modern times. I think he came up with the slogan, "You've come a long way, baby," which induced women to smoke. He wrote the book Propaganda in 1929. He lived a long time. He's called the father of PR. He was on David Letterman's show back in the 80s. And his uncle was a guy by the name of Sigmund Freud. So he tapped into psychoanalysis and all our unconscious drives and lusts and vices to kind of exploit them and to feed people ideas that they're willing to separate themselves with their money to be manipulable. Really interesting. I'm not sure if you've read much about Marshall McLuhan, the Canadian media he's very much in your wheelhouse. He died in 1980. He came up with the phrase, "The medium is the message." He was a literature professor at the University of Toronto, and he was in the Woody Allen film Annie Hall. But he's a very interesting theorist on the media. And there's so many different ways to interpret the medium as the message. But one of them is, for instance, the shape of fonts. Fonts have a meaning independent of the words they're conveying. A funny example of the medium as the message regarding fonts is Dan Gilbert, who's the owner or used to be of the Cavaliers basketball team, wrote this diatribe against LeBron James because he went to Florida, and he took to his keyboard warrior set on his blog, and he wrote this nasty kind of hyper macho resentment letter that went public. But he used the font called Sans Comic, like the grandma gift card font, like very childish, and it just looked ridiculous because here's this hyper testosterone rant didn't fit. So the medium is the message. Talking about Marshall McLuhan reminds me of Wilson Bryan Key. I remember when I was young, I read all his books. He wrote Media Sexploitation, the sexual images inside photographs, and now with AI, I'm sure that's even more common. Good.
Yeah, some of the images I use in a lot of my presentation. I mean, Burger King had a great one, the 7-inch sub, and there was a woman. I mean, these are pretty blatant. right in your face, but it's a woman with her mouth wide open, getting ready to, it says the 7-incher. I mean, this was actually out there
Subtle.
for public consumption. And so it's part and parcel of overall messages. So the thing about the subconscious and how it derives our behavior, it derives our behavior through patterning of the greater environment. So the subconscious is just going to pick up similar themes and patterns in that one ad and move on to the next ad, to the next movie, to the next radio song, to the next pop song, to the next newspaper clipping. And it strings together the repetitive content, but this is all done invisibly outside our conscious awareness. And then once it has invisibly determined the most repetitive content, it also invisibly forces us to adopt those ideas and patterns as our own in an attempt to blend with the bigger herd. The most repetitive content is basically there to reflect what the bigger herd is saying, thinking, or doing. This is a safety mechanism. No one knows it operates in this way. It's not taught to us in the schools. Someone like Edward Bernays knew that the most repetitive content does reflect the group. We are pack animals looking for group safety in the middle of the herd. The more scared we are, the more inside the herd we need to be to reacquire our feelings of safety. So you can see why they use fear, and then, of course, the repetitive messaging that follows. It's very easy to lead people unconscious to themselves in any direction that the controller wishes, because they know that the repetitive content and the fear really basically increases the compliance quotient in any sort of population.
This all reminds me of the thinking of he's a French philosopher. He ended up teaching at Stanford for 40 years. His name is René Girard. René Girard came up with this theory of human nature that he called mimesis. He also called it mimetic desire. And it's what you're saying. We think tribally. We don't want to stand out. We want to love what others love and hate what they hate. We indulge in office gossip because it affords us the opportunity to scapegoat people. We're always about scapegoating. I mean, P. Diddy is a scapegoat. Harvey Weinstein is a scapegoat. All that pool of sin, all that darkness, all that horrible behavior gets cast upon one person, and the others in the group feel expiated. They feel kind of, they dodge the bullet because now we can punish the evildoer. But they're also the evildoer. Does anyone really think that these freak-offs were only conducted by this guy, or that Harvey Weinstein invented the casting couch?
Yeah. I was listening to that on your last podcast, or what was on YouTube. And yeah, I mean, a lot of people like to project their dirtiness onto someone like P. Diddy, say it's him, it's not me. But I mean, if you're a genuine human being and you want to be a real leader, you have to make sure that the mask you wear in public is the same mask you wear when no one's around. Mm-hmm. And that's the standard I hold myself to, is I try to make sure that what I do in the privacy where no one's around is the exact same mask I wear when I go out in public. And the more you can align those, the more spiritually grounded you become, so that you don't have to put so much energy into having several different personalities, because each individual personality takes a lot of energy from the system.
Yeah. I just read this maybe yesterday, maybe on your site. It really struck me as true that you have to memorize a lie over and over and over again. But you hear the truth once and it sticks. The truth, there's a simplicity to it. So isn't that the definition of character? Behaving the same way in public, viewed or unviewed, that's you. And there shouldn't be this double-faced, which I think is the etymology of the word hypocrisy, like a double mask. I think it comes from a Greek word, where you're one person with one audience and another person with another audience, as all good politicians know, if they're good demagogues. All of this is reminding me of something my audience knows very well. When I say the phrase, a lot of people are going to grin because I bring it up so often, and that's the Latin phrase "nomen est omen." Nomen est omen means names are destiny, And the Romans had this instinct that very often someone's name becomes sometimes ironically or humorously tied up with what either what fate befalls them or what career they choose. And sometimes they're really funny, often inappropriate. Like one of my favorite nomen est omens is Anthony Weiner, right?
He's got Wiener in his name.
Exactly. Look at Trump, Donald Trump. He holds the Trump card. Subliminally, he triumphed. You know, he trumpeted. He trumpets. Look at the Enron guy who's now in jail for the rest of his life, Bernie Madoff. He made off. You know? So once you notice it, you see it a lot in the news.
Yeah, like Donald too. Don means king. You know, the Don of Don Corleone.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's good.
Right.
Trump has a way of communicating that I think is, I don't know if it's neurolinguistic programming, but he does a lot of repetitive phrases, and he holds his hand. Now, JFK did this. Ask not what your country can do for you. Yeah. Clinton picked that up. That became a kind of a Clinton gesture. But Donald's is like this. Trump is like this. He does this over and over again. Now, it's not a black power fist. It's sort of a curled thing. And he always emphasizes his point repetitively with that gesture. Have you noticed this about the way Trump communicates? Almost putting you in a trance.
He does. I mean, it's a sort of a strength posturing. He's got his fist up. But generally, a good orator, like, say, Barack Obama, he will always have his hands up because it relaxes the human nervous system. Because if your hands are hidden, there's always suspicion of the nervous system that you're not aware of an attack that could come. So when you show the hands, it's a sign of friendliness. It's a sign of sort of you're being a little bit submissive. You're not aggressive. So this is one of the ways a lot of excellent speakers sort of relax their people or the audience, is to keep their hands, you know, not on their sides or not hidden behind the podium. It does relax most people.
Mm-hmm. Isn't shaking hands a kind of unconscious acknowledgement that you're not armed? You're not holding a sword, you're not holding a gun. It's safe to engage with someone else's hand.
Yeah, I mean, at least one of the hands are open for viewing, right? So at least one of the hands, that's a good start. Is okay. One hand is not a threat, and this is what I mean. When you do hypnosis and you do deep mind control, a lot of hypnosis shows, and people should be aware that they should go see hypnosis shows, because if you want to know how mind control works, they should probably study it at a hypnosis show, because it is all about power differential, where if you go to a hypnosis show, there would be usually the hypnotist will get several people on stage, but he'll stand behind them again to alert the nervous system that you might want to do what you're told, because you're not really in a good defensive position.
On display.
You're on display, but you're also sitting. The mind controller is standing. And you'll notice that all mind controllers, like hypnotists, will not only stand behind their victims when their victims are like the hypnosis victims on stage, will not only stand behind the victims to create the nervous system power differential, they will always touch them. They will always touch them to sort of trigger the nervous system to say, I'm within arm's reach and you're sitting, I have the power, and you can invoke deeper compliance, which is mind control, when you take even a physical superior position to your mind control victim. That's why all politicians speak on podiums and not at floor level as well. The higher up the person on the podium, the deeper forms of mind control that you can invoke.
I've interviewed the amazing Kreskin. People of a certain age will remember him on television. He does hypnosis as well. How did you discover just how profoundly the unconscious affects the upper echelon, what we call our conscious mind? Was that another insight you stumbled into? Because people are driven by forces they're not even aware of. And those forces can be manipulated from outside, externally.
Yeah, this is why when you start talking about mind control, and sometimes when I talked at the U.S. Senate, at the Romanian Palace of the Parliament, or I spoke at the Japanese Parliament just about 6 weeks ago, you sometimes don't have the opportunities that you'd have with a longer presentation with a bigger audience. So a lot of people don't know how powerful mind control is, and you will need some video evidence to make sure they understand. So what I'll do is I'll offer this video to your people right now. They can just email me and about this video that I will describe, just so that the average person can know this is how powerful mind control can be. So there's a made-for-Netflix special called The Push. I don't know if you've seen this. It's by a mind control expert out of the UK called Derren Brown.
Oh, I know Derren Brown, yeah.
And it will show you how quick mind control can take hold of an average person and put the pressure on them, the group pressure, right? We're herd-based animals.
Yeah.
So Derren Brown had 70 actors in this made-for-Netflix special. And so they're all focusing in on, like, the whole drama is scripted around only one mind control victim. They're going to try and make this one poor soul do something really bizarre so that Derren can earn his money and wow the audience.
So that's the non-actor's the mark, right? Of the show.
The non-actor is the mark. Yeah. And so the 70 actors are all in on the drama. And it's a pretty good drama. I'm not going to really describe the whole thing. You can just definitely email me at info@jchristoff.com and I'll send you a copy of this. It's hard to get. Yeah. It's hard to get for a reason, because if you watch it, you'll understand what happened over the past 5 years. But it ends on the roof of a 10-story building. There is an old man on the precipice of that 10-story building. How he gets there and why he's hanging his feet off the side, you'll have to watch the show.
Okay.
But don't worry, it's not an old man. It's a stunt man, and he's in Hollywood makeup. He looks old. He's harnessed, but you can't see any of the harnesses. There's cameras everywhere, and the mark is up on the 10th story. And they've been working him mind control-wise with several mind control modalities for the full 2-hour show that was clipped into 2-hour con that was clipped into a 1-hour special. Now, they putting the pressure on him on the roof, and he can relieve his pressure if he goes and kills the old man and pushes them off the side of the building. This experiment was run 4 times. 3 out of the 4 participants killed the man live on camera. When the murder was complete, psychologists and psychiatrists ran out and said, this is a show. Don't worry, you didn't. I mean, it's not ethical at all, this experiment. You didn't kill the man. Look over, he's a stunt man. He's harnessed. That was done with only 2 hours of psychological manipulation. And the average person has been put under those forms of mind control by very dark and ancient groups that are in power today since they flew out of the womb. So if you wonder why you drink and smoke and vape and you don't get anywhere and you chase your own tail and you self-sabotage and you join the gym and you never go, but you go twice, once to join the gym and then once to quit after your year's expired.
Yeah.
And you got home exercise equipment in the basement you never use. You bought Anthony Robbins tapes you never listened to. You want to start a business, but you don't do anything. You want to make your life better, but it's just this, circling of the drain every day of your life. That's being programmed into you. You're working as designed, and that's one of the primary modalities of the cultural mind control we're all under, is the great weakening, to make you basically be your own worst enemy. That's what it's about.
A lot of the content of my commentaries and interview guests and all the things I do on YouTube have to be heavily censored by me. To get the full iteration, unfiltered, uncensored, go to the True North Movement. That's patrickcoffin.media. You'll find an extra episode. You'll find all the activities around the water cooler, our main community chat. We do books, we do movies, we do culture, faith, and reason. So get the entire conversation, uncensored from YouTube. Go to patrickcoffin.media.